Hello everyone. Let us start with the exception handling. So in the earlier class we have discussed about inheritance. Hope you understood inheritance concept. And in inheritance we have discussed single inheritance and multi-level inheritance. There is no multiple inheritance. And we have discussed different uses of super. And we have discussed dynamic dispatching, and dynamic dispatching are we are creating a reference variable to a super class, and we are then assigning a subclass reference variable to that superclass variable, and that also we will call it as a upcasting. We will say upcasting, and there is no downcasting concept here in Java. And next we have discussed exception handling. What is actually this exception handling indicates? Exception indicating that it is just an interruption, but for a program execution. So when an interruption occurs, how program is terminated, whether it is terminating normally or abnormally. So that is saying exception handling. So exception handling. So when exception occurs, how to handle that? So that we are studying in this exception handling chapter. So we have seen different kinds or categories of exception handling here in this. There are three categories. One is checked exception, unchecked exception, and the errors. So errors are the out of bound. I mean, they may arise during the program or during the program execution, and they are not in a control of programmer. So those are all errors. And checked exceptions, the exceptions are the errors. They may occur at the compile time. So those are checked exception. Unchecked exception, they are the errors which are occur at the run time. So those are all the unchecked exceptions. So those are the different categories which we have discussed in the earlier class. And there are several unchecked or runtime exceptions that are under java.lang class. Okay, so here are few arithmetic exception, array out of bound exception. So see here are few, and you can study these errors, and we will not be using almost all. So we'll be using first two, and class cast exception, and string index out of bound. So these many we are using, and null pointer exception. So these are all the mainly used exceptions that are under java.lang. And these are the checked exception. I mean the exceptions which are occur at the compile time. I mean we will get to know at the compile time itself what actually the error is, the exception is. So class not found exception, illegal access exception. So these are all the different exceptions we have here. So the same it is in java.lang. So as I said, these are all the exceptions which are under java.lang class, but upon these or above these subclasses are the exceptions. We have one generic exception called only exception. The name itself is exception. Okay, so that is apparent for all these classes, both checked and unchecked exceptions. Only exception. Okay, so under exception we have checked as well as unchecked exceptions. So checked exceptions are these many, and unchecked exceptions are these many. They have classified. And here uncaught exception. So here we are not handling any exception here, right? Here we are executing a program and we have an error or an exception here. We are not handling. So that is why uncaught exception it is. Okay. So here divided by 0, that is an arithmetic exception. 42 by d value is 0. So which is the error which we have got when we are executing a program. So if you have NetBeans or Eclipse, you just have to execute this simple program and save that exe0.java and compile, and you can see which error you will get. So this error will get java.lang is a main class. Under that we have arithmetic exception, that's a divided by 0 error. So in which line it is there. This is uncaught. I mean we are not handling this exception. Okay. Next the same example we have class exe1, and this here in this what we are doing, we are including an exception or including a set of statements, those I mean previous statements in the routine, I mean in the method or a function. So right, static void subroutine. So static, because we have declared it as static, there is no need of creating an object for this to call. So you can just call via a class, right? So this I have taught in a C++, right? So when the function is preceded with a static keyword, so that is common for, that information is common for all the classes, so that in which class you wanted to access that, so that class name dot followed by a method name you have to give. So here while calling also we will get to know that there will be an error, we know, in fact, okay. So in this line also we have an error, and in this line also we have an error. So here this is the main method, and here it is a subroutine. So 1, 2, 3, 4th line also we have an error, 5th, 6th line, 7th line also we have an error. So that error, those errors or exceptions will be uh, thrown by the compiler. And this till this we have discussed in the earlier class. So let us just begin with this try catch statements or try catch clauses, we will say. And this is a basic skeleton of the exception. There will be a common question called explain with the syntax, or explain try catch syntax, or explain the skeleton of exception handling, right? So you have to write this try. So within this try, you have to include statements in such a way that you have to identify in which statements you have got errors, right? So here try, in this try block, here in this try block you have to include a statements, so probable statements or probable error statement. So that is within a try block. So in a catch, so in a catch, what error you will get here in the try block, so that error should be catched and should be caught by this catch clause, okay, or the catch function, right? So here exception, here exception type, and this is an object, exception object. So exception type, it should be an subclass, which we have seen checked or unchecked exception, and you have to create an object for that, right? So object may be anything, you can give any name, right? So catch. So if you have multiple error statements here in the try block, you can use multiple catch statements here. How many catch statements you want, that many catch statements you can include. So this is exception handling, and that's a type 1 error and the type 2 exception. And you can have any number of catch statements here, and there will be only try block, and you can have any number of catch statement. And finally you have finally clause or finally block, right? So this finally block, all right. So once you have any errors here, so those errors or those exceptions are handled by this catch clause or a catch block. So once these statements are error handling or exception handling is over, else statements you can put it in a finally block. Without finally block also you can put or you can keep. So with finally block, so once try and catch block statements are over, so it will execute automatically, okay, finally, without explicitly specifying this finally also, the statements which are there after catch block will execute, but finally you can include. So this block is compulsorily executed by the compiler. So finally block, so block of code to be executed after try block ends, okay. Once the exception handling is over, this is a compulsory block which is going to execute. So that is finally. So try, catch, and the finally, right? So this is a basic syntax. So if they have asked any question like write a basic syntax of exception handling, you have to write try, catch, as well as finally, and then you have to give an example for this, right? So let us discuss with an example. So here class exception, and here in the only one method you have taken main method. Within that main method, we have taken two different variables. So within a try block, you can see that possible error statements we have kept here, and which error we may get. So those errors or those exceptions will be handled by catch clause, okay, or a catch block. Okay, here in try, so we have initialized d value is 0 and a is equal to 42 by 0. So earlier example only. So here 42 divided by 0. So here in this line itself we have got an error or we have got an exception. So it is not going to execute the system.out.println statement. So once it got or once it catches any exception here, so it will automatically jumps to the catch statement or the catch block. So this statement will not be printed. Okay, this will not be executed. So here itself the execution is ended within a try block and next catch block. What kind of exception you have? I mean the type of exception you have to provide. So you are only introducing an error and you are only handling an error. So you must have to know that which kind of error you have, right? So here you have, so that kind of error you have to pass as a parameter, and this parameter, and this is an object of this. So this is a subclass under java.lang. So this is also a class. So for that class we are creating an object e. This can be anything, e or e1 or exe, anything you want you can create that. So there is no compulsion that you have to create e itself or you have to write e itself. Okay, catch, so it should be a function like, okay, right, catch arithmetic exception and the object, class name and the object, and within that you can have your own exception or statement, or you can have a built-in statement like do like exception you can just put and plus e, so it will give a system generated exception. System generated exception indicating that, so earlier example we have seen. So this is a system generated exception, java.lang. So this is system generated exception once you have given e, just e plus e, right? Plus e indicating that the exceptions we are, the system generated exception we are appending. That's it, right? So catch statement. And here you can put a finally block. Without finally block also it will work, or this statement will be executed. Okay, if you have kept in a finally block also, this is a compulsory statement. Okay, so system.out.println after catch statement. So here once the error occurs it will catch it, so division by 0, so it will display that, and after catch statement, so after try and block, so it will display the else statements which are there in a main method. And the next statement, so which is here you can see that import java.utility.random. So random is a class which is used to generate random numbers. So random numbers may be 0, 1 or any number, 200, anything, right? So here we have given a restriction that is 32,000, right? So within a main we have three variables a, b, c, and we have assigned all those to 0. And random r, random is a class, we have created an r object, you can create anything, new random. So here r is an object, we have created an object for that random class. So now within this for loop, so it should have to generate, or it should have to iterate from I is equal to 0 to 32,000, right? Less than 32,000, I mean 31,999. So it should generate within that boundary, right? So within that we have kept a try block here. So why this is try block? So here we have a statement b. So b is a variable which we have initialized as a 0 here. So b and c we are taking as an input from the random number. So random r dot next int. So r is a object of this random number, and next int. Next int is, it is used to get a integer value. So right, so we are taking a input from that random number generation. So finally we are assigning it to b, and similarly for a c, right? If that is a case that if we have generated, and there will be a probable case that both b and c have generated 0. What if both b and c have generated 0, or both B and C are assigned to 0 value by the random number generation. So here A is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 divided by either one of the value is 0, so it will throws division by 0 error. So that those possible statements are kept in a try block, and that error or exception what we have got, that we are handling in a catch block. Okay, so catch arithmetic exception, so here is divided by 0, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and divided by 0. So either B or C becomes a 0, it will throw some arithmetic exception error, right? So once it prints a division by 0 arithmetic exception, so finally it is going to assign a value to 0, a value to 0. So here the a value becomes a 0, right? And then we are handling an error and we are finally assigning it to 0 value. Finally, in this statement, we are printing a value. We are printing the a value. If we have error here, then the catch statement will execute. If you don't have any error, the catch statement will not be executed. Finally, it will execute the whatever the error which we have got here. Say for example, if B and C value that is generated by the random class, that is 1 and 1. So 1 divided by 1 is 1, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 divided by 1. So it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there will be no error. This catch statement will not be executed. Finally, it will come out of that try block and it will execute the system.out.println statement. So here we are just printing the a value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so here after try block execution, so this is the statement which is going to execute. So this statement you can put it in a finally also, or you can just leave it also. This is a compulsory statement to be executed. Okay, hope you understood this program. Next one. So class test, here also we have taken the same example, but there will be a different thing. I mean, generic exception we are using. And the earlier example I have told that. So divided by 0 error, arithmetic exception and E. I have told that. So in the earlier example, we have kept it as a divided by 0. That's a user-defined exception. That is a user-defined exception. Here you can see that divided by or division by 0. Here you can see. Okay, this is a better example. So 42 divided by 0, d value is 0. So we have kept division by 0. This is our statement. I mean, user-defined statement. Our user-defined string we have passed it to println statement. But here what we are doing? So here I have told in the beginning. So exception E. So via this object, we are just printing the system generated exception. That is exception and plus E. So this is system generated exception that is thrown by the compiler. So here java.lang.arithmetic exception. So this is thrown by the compiler divided by 0. Okay. So this exception is whatever we have given in a string. Okay, that is in a println, and plus E will generate a system generated exception. So after try and catch, else statement is this. So after catch statement will be print as it is. Okay, so this is an example. So this is called the generic exception. Okay. Okay. Next is multiple catch clauses. So as I said, there will be only try block. You can have any number of catch clauses or any number of catch statements, catch blocks, right? So here till now we have seen that one try block and one catch block. So here in this example, there will be a one try block and there will be a multiple catch blocks, right? Or catch clause. So here in this class test, in the main method, we have included statements which we have got errors or exceptions here. So those statements we are kept in a try block, and within a catch block, what are the possible exceptions we have got? So those errors we have caught here, and finally the default statement we have here. So what is there in a try block? So here int a argument, I mean args. So here we have used args. So as I have said in the class, I have explained with a shell program also. So arguments, how many arguments which we are passing to this program, so that length it is carrying, or that length it is holding, arguments dot length. So if you are passing only one argument, a value will be 1. If we are passing two arguments, a value becomes 2. So let us discuss with an example. Okay, system dot out dot println, and depending on the number of parameters, the a value will get printed. And here int b is equal to, right? If we are not passing any argument to our program, so a value is 0. So here in this statement we have got an error, right? Or an exception. Which kind of exception? That is divided by 0 exception. So here once it got any error here, so it will call the catch, and it will execute this divided by 0, and this will generate a system generated error, and finally it is going to print after try and catch block. Okay, so once the exception occurs here in this statement, it will not execute the else statements. Okay, it will come out of that